In 1978, one company in Cambridge, Massachusetts controlled 2/3 of the instant camera market in the entire United States. Walk into any living room in America, any birthday party, any school event, any summer vacation, and there it was. Someone would pull out a camera, press a single button, and a photograph would slide out and develop right in front of your eyes. That name was Polaroid. They didn't just make instant cameras. They invented instant photography. They built the entire category from nothing. At their peak, this company employed over 21,000 workers, generated nearly $3 billion in annual revenue, and put 1 billion photographs in people's hands every single year. 1 billion. Andy Warhol made art with them. Ansel Adams used them. Every Hollywood casting director, every real estate agent, every parent at a school play had one. Then something went catastrophically wrong. By 2001, the company that invented instant photography filed for bankruptcy. Its stock, which traded at $59.50 just 4 years earlier, collapsed to 26 cents. Employees who had invested their entire retirement savings into company stock, told to as part of an employee ownership plan, watched decades of savings evaporate overnight. 6,000 retirees lost the lifetime health benefits they had been promised. The factories went silent. The machines stopped. And the name that once meant magic became just another label slapped on cheap televisions at Walmart. This is the story of how a 17-year-old dropout turned a 3-year-old girl's question into the most dominant photography company America has ever seen. How one man's obsession with light and color built an empire that seemed untouchable, and how that empire, after winning every fight that mattered, made a series of decisions so blind and so comfortable that it destroyed itself from the inside. Welcome inside the silent Polaroid factory. Chapter 1. The Dropout. Cambridge, Massachusetts, 1926. A 17-year-old boy named Edwin Herbert Land enrolls at Harvard University to study physics. He's brilliant, restless, obsessed with light in a way that makes his professors uncomfortable. He isn't interested in following someone else's research. He wants to solve problems no one has even thought to ask yet. Within months, Land takes a leave of absence. He moves to New York City and starts teaching himself everything Harvard won't let him do fast enough. He's not rebelling, he's accelerating. By 1928, he's cracked something that has eluded scientists for decades: a practical, affordable method to control polarized light. Small crystals, magnetic fields, invisible filters. It sounds obscure. It isn't. Polarized light is everywhere. Glare on windshields, reflections on water, the shimmering haze that makes driving dangerous. Land has figured out how to eliminate it. He doesn't go back to finish his degree. He doesn't need to. What he needs is a company. In 1933, Land teams up with George Wheelwright III, a physics professor from Harvard, and they form Land Wheelwright Laboratories in a Cambridge garage. The operation is tiny, a handful of scientists, a shoestring budget, no guarantee that anyone will ever buy what they're building. But Land has a talent that goes beyond science. He understands people. He understands that technology only matters if it solves something real. And polarized light solves something very real: glare. He pitches polarized sunglasses. He pitches polarized filters for cameras. He pitches polarized lenses for cars, for movie theaters, for the military. Wall Street titans, Averell Harriman, J.P. Morgan, start writing checks. The company is reincorporated as the Polaroid Corporation in 1937. Land is 28 years old and he's already running one of the most scientifically ambitious startups in America. But none of this is what Polaroid will be remembered for. That comes from a question a little girl asks on a sunny afternoon in New Mexico, and it changes everything. Chapter 2. The Question That Built an Empire. Santa Fe, New Mexico, 1943. Edwin Land is on a family vacation with his wife and their 3-year-old daughter, Jennifer. It's a beautiful day. Land picks up his Rolleiflex camera and snaps a photograph of Jennifer in the sunlight. Jennifer looks up at him. "Why can't I see the picture right now?" It's the kind of question a 3-year-old asks 100 times a day about 100 different things. Most parents laugh it off. Most parents say that's not how cameras work and move on. Edwin Land doesn't move on. He hands Jennifer to her mother and walks off alone through the streets of Santa Fe. He's thinking. Fast. The camera, the film, the chemistry, the optics, everything he knows about light, about materials, about manufacturing. Within 1 hour, 1 single hour, he has the fundamental architecture of instant photography mapped out in his head. The film that develops itself, the camera that does everything automatically. The moment you press the button, the picture starts becoming real. He later told an interviewer, "Within the hour, the film and the physical chemistry became so clear to me." He finds his patent attorney, Donald Brown, who happens to also be vacationing in Santa Fe. Land lays out the concept. By December 1943, Land is back in Cambridge, assembling a team, and the project officially launches. It takes 5 years to turn the idea into a product. 5 years of chemistry breakthroughs, failed film stocks, redesigned cameras, and thousands of hours of obsessive testing. But by November 26, 1948, it's ready. The Polaroid Land Camera Model 95 goes on sale at Jordan Marsh Department Store in downtown Boston. Polaroid manufactured exactly 60 units for this first run. 57 of them hit the store shelves before Christmas. They sell out in one single day. The price tag is $89.75, the equivalent of roughly $1,100 today. That's not cheap. That's not an impulse buy. That's a serious purchase, and people are paying it without hesitation because nothing like this has ever existed before. You point the camera, you press the button, a photograph slides out and develops in your hands. No dark room, no chemicals on your fingers, no waiting days or weeks, just instant magic. The camera isn't perfect. The early models are bulky, awkward, and the film requires careful handling. You have to peel apart the negative and positive, coat the print with a chemical stabilizer, and wait for it to dry. It's messy. It's fiddly. But the concept is so revolutionary that none of that matters. People don't care about the inconvenience. They care about the miracle, and the miracle sells. But the miracle almost never existed. Because before Jennifer asked her question, before instant photography, Polaroid was a company that came within inches of disappearing completely. And the reason it survived has everything to do with a war. Chapter 3: The War That Saved Them. When World War II hit, Land threw his entire company at the military. Polaroid manufactured polarizing filters for periscopes, gun sights, binoculars, and infrared night vision devices. They developed variable density goggles that protected soldiers' eyes during flash photography and gunfire. They created vectographs, a stereoscopic imaging system that could reveal camouflaged enemy positions hidden in aerial photographs. Reconnaissance pilots would look at what appeared to be flat, featureless terrain and suddenly see trenches, vehicles, and weapon emplacements that had been invisible to the naked eye. Polaroid didn't just support the war effort, it helped shape military strategy. The company's workforce was fully mobilized. Revenue surged. And when the war ended, Land had something most small technology companies in America didn't have: credibility, infrastructure, and government contracts. But the war's end also meant the end of military orders. Revenue was about to crater. Land needed something new, something commercial, something that would keep thousands of people employed. He already had the answer. He'd been thinking about it since Santa Fe. The instant camera saved Polaroid's life. Without it, the company would have shrunk back into obscurity after 1945. With it, Land built something that would last generations. Through the 1950s and into the 1960s, Polaroid refined the technology relentlessly. Cameras got smaller, film got better, prices came down. The Model 110 arrived in 1951 with improved film sensitivity. Color came next. In 1963, Polaroid introduced its first color film in the ColorPack camera. The colors were muted, and the development process still required peeling apart the negative and positive. But it was color. It was instant. And it was real. In 1965, they released the Swinger, a camera aimed at teenagers, priced at just $19.95. Cheap enough that kids could buy one with summer job money. The advertising was aggressive and clever. Polaroid understood something crucial. The more people who had cameras, the more film they would buy. And film, not cameras, was where the real money lived. The margins on Polaroid film were extraordinary. As high as 70% on high-volume production. Every roll of film that passed through a Polaroid camera was nearly pure profit. The camera was almost the afterthought. The film was the engine. By the late 1960s, Polaroid's annual sales had reached $400 million. The company employed thousands across Massachusetts. Land was a celebrity in the business world. A scientist-inventor running a technology empire the way Steve Jobs would decades later. The Boston Globe would eventually call Polaroid the Apple of its time, and Land played the part. He recruited the world's greatest photographers, Ansel Adams, Andy Warhol, William Wegman, gave them free film, free studio space, and said, "Shoot whatever you want. Just give us a few prints when you're done." The Polaroid Artist Collection grew to over 16,000 photographs by 120 recognized masters. It wasn't marketing, it was culture. Land wanted Polaroid to live at the intersection of science and art, and for a while it did. But Land wasn't satisfied. He was never satisfied. He had a bigger vision. A camera so elegant, so simple, so beautiful that it would change the relationship between people and photographs forever. A camera where you truly did nothing except point and shoot. No peeling, no coating, no timing, no mess. Just one click, and the picture appears. That camera would take 8 years to build. It would cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And it would be the greatest single product launch in the history of photography. Its name was the SX70. Chapter 4. The SX70. The greatest camera ever built. 1972. Edwin Land stands on stage in front of a live audience. He is holding a small, folding camera wrapped in leather and chrome. It looks like something from the future. It looks like nothing anyone has ever seen. He demonstrates it live. He folds it open. He takes a photograph. The picture slides out of the camera. No pulling, no peeling, no chemicals, no waste, and develops right there in daylight, in front of everyone watching. Within minutes, a full-color photograph materializes on a small white square of paper. Then Land does something else. He folds the camera shut and slips it into his jacket pocket, like a magic trick. The audience watches in silence, then erupts. The SX70 is not an incremental improvement over previous Polaroid cameras. It is a complete reinvention, an 8-year development program that reportedly cost $500 million in 1972 money. Land reportedly claimed the camera incorporated 20,000 individual technological breakthroughs. The number might be an exaggeration. The achievement isn't. The engineering inside this camera is staggering. It folds flat, compact enough to slip into a suit jacket pocket. When you open it, a bellows system expands the lens housing while keeping the camera light-tight. The lens is a 4-element glass design, 116mm f8, sharp enough to produce photographs that professionals took seriously. The film develops automatically, without any intervention from the photographer. No pulling, no peeling, no chemicals on your hands, no timing. You press the button, the photograph slides out, and you watch it develop in daylight over the next few minutes. The image starts as a pale, ghostly shadow and slowly sharpens into a full-color photograph right in front of your eyes. A built-in battery powers the entire system, and that battery lives inside the film pack itself. Every time you buy a new roll of Polaroid film, you're also buying a fresh battery. No dead cameras. No hunting for AAs before a birthday party. It just works. The exposure system is controlled by custom electronics from Texas Instruments. Polaroid set a target price of $5.75 for the circuit board. Texas Instruments' first design came in at $100, way over budget. They went back to the drawing board. The final board cost $4.10, shutter speeds accurate to plus or minus 10%, far more precise than any consumer camera on the market at the time. The industrial design was done by Henry Dreyfuss Associates, one of the most legendary design firms in the world. The leather covering, the chrome accents, the way the camera sat in your hand, every detail was obsessed over. A designer named Jim Connor at the Dreyfuss firm spent months turning what was originally a boxy prototype into something that looked like it belonged in a museum. The SX70 doesn't just work beautifully, it looks beautiful. Land priced it at $180 when it launched. That's $1,350 in today's money. It's expensive, it's a luxury purchase, and it sells anyway. Within the first 18 months, Polaroid moves 700,000 SX70 units. Andy Warhol starts shooting with one obsessively. Ansel Adams praises the engineering. Helmut Newton uses it on fashion shoots. The camera doesn't just take photographs, it becomes a cultural object, a status symbol, a piece of art that also happens to be a machine. Fortune magazine calls the SX70 one of the most remarkable accomplishments in industrial history. Time and Life both put it on their covers, and it proves something important about Edwin Land. When he commits to a vision, when he truly believes in what he's building, he doesn't cut corners. He doesn't compromise. He spends whatever it takes, however long it takes, to make the thing perfect. The SX70 is proof that Land's obsession with perfection isn't a flaw. It's a superpower. But superpowers have limits. And the SX70, for all its brilliance, was about to expose one. Because Polaroid wasn't the only company watching instant photography become a goldmine. Chapter 5. The War with Kodak. For 28 years, Polaroid owned instant photography completely. No one else could touch it. Edwin Land had built a fortress of patents around every single piece of the technology. The film chemistry, the camera mechanisms, the developing process, the paper, the coating. Hundreds of patents. An impenetrable wall. Kodak knew this. Kodak had actually been Polaroid's partner for years. From the 1950s through the late 1960s, Kodak manufactured the negative component of Polaroid's film. They sat in the same meetings. They shared technical knowledge. Kodak understood exactly how instant photography worked because they helped build it. It was a mentor and protege relationship that had lasted over a decade. Then, everything changed. In 1968, Land showed Kodak executives a prototype of the SX70, the new integral film system that would make peel-apart film obsolete. He showed them the photographs. He laid out the vision. Kodak saw what was coming. They saw that instant photography was about to become even bigger, even more dominant. And they wanted in, not as a supplier, as a competitor. Kodak demanded a license to use Polaroid's technology. Land refused. The relationship that had lasted 20 years collapsed in months. Kodak terminated the partnership in 1969 and launched its own secret research program, Project PL976, with one goal: put an instant camera on the market by 1976. They spent years developing their own chemistry, their own film structure, their own camera mechanisms. They convinced themselves they had found ways to build instant photography without violating Polaroid's patents. They were wrong. In April 1976, Kodak released the EK4 and EK6 instant cameras and PR10 instant film. Kodak had the manufacturing scale. They had the distribution network. They had the brand recognition. They had everything it takes to crush a competitor. Polaroid sued within months. Edwin Land viewed Kodak's entry into instant photography as a personal betrayal, not just a business move, a theft. Kodak had been inside Polaroid's world for years. They had seen the chemistry up close, and now they were using that knowledge to compete directly. The lawsuit consumed both companies for 9 years. During that entire time, 9 years, Kodak kept selling instant cameras. They couldn't just stop. They had factories running, employees working, retailers stocked. By the mid-1980s, Kodak had captured nearly 30% of the instant camera market. 30%. The company that invented instant photography was watching a third of its customers walk out the door. Then, in 1985, a federal judge in Boston ruled in Polaroid's favor. Kodak had infringed on 7 of Polaroid's patents. The decision was devastating. Kodak's instant cameras were pulled from store shelves. Their instant film disappeared overnight. Millions of customers who had bought Kodak instant cameras suddenly owned machines with no ammunition. 6 years later, in 1991, the damages were calculated. Kodak was ordered to pay Polaroid $909 million. $909 million. The largest patent infringement settlement in American history at that time. Polaroid had won, completely, decisively. The patent wall held. Kodak was destroyed in instant photography and would never return. It should have been a triumph. It should have been the moment Polaroid looked at the horizon and saw nothing but clear sky ahead. But the war with Kodak cost something nobody was talking about. It cost time. It cost attention. It cost years of executive focus that should have been pointed at the future. And while Polaroid was locked in a legal battle with Kodak over analog film, the world was quietly building something that would make the entire fight irrelevant. The first warning sign was already here, and Polaroid missed it completely. Chapter 6. Polavision. The First Warning, 1977. The same year Polaroid is at its absolute peak. 21,000 employees, instant cameras flying off shelves, the patent war with Kodak raging. Edwin Land launches his most ambitious project since the SX70. He calls it Polavision. It's an instant home movie system, the same magic as instant photography, but for moving pictures. You shoot a short film, insert the cartridge into a viewer, and within 90 seconds you're watching your footage on a small screen. Land has been working on this for over a decade. It's his obsession, his next revolution. The thing that will prove Polaroid can do for video what it did for photography. The technology is genuinely impressive. The engineering is real. Land poured years of research into making it work. The product is a disaster. The movies last less than 3 minutes. There is no sound. The film speed is so slow it requires extremely bright lights to shoot anything usable. The image quality is murky and dark, and it requires a special proprietary viewer that costs $699 at launch, nearly $2,800 in today's money. Meanwhile, Sony has just launched the Betamax video cassette system. VHS is right behind it. A standard videotape costs $17 and runs for an hour or more. A Polavision cartridge costs $8 and runs for 2.5 minutes. The math isn't close. The comparison isn't fair. Polavision is an engineering achievement locked in a product that no rational consumer would choose over a video cassette player. Stanford Calderwood, Polaroid's executive vice president, had warned Land before the launch. The movie camera business accounts for only 3% of the entire photographic market. Why are we betting everything on this? Bill McCune, Polaroid's president, was even more direct. He believed Polavision was too big a technology bet on a product with virtually no market research behind it. Land overruled them both. He believed that once the public saw the technology, demand would follow. He had been right before. with polarized sunglasses, with the Land camera, with the SX70. Every time the product came first and the market followed. This time he was wrong. Polavision was discontinued in 1979. Polaroid wrote off $89 million, most of the manufactured products and all of the R&D costs. It was the company's first major public failure. And it didn't just lose money, it shattered something inside the organization. Former Polaroid freelancer Paul Giambarba put it bluntly, instant movie film was an engineering achievement, but it's precisely what separated Polaroid techies from Polaroid pragmatists. There just weren't enough customers out there on whom to work the magic. The executives who had warned Land, the pragmatists, the market-oriented thinkers, felt vindicated. They had told him. They had begged him to do proper market research before committing hundreds of millions of dollars. He had overruled them. Land felt betrayed by a company that didn't understand his vision. The tension between these two factions had simmered for years. Polavision turned it into an open war. In 1981, after 4 decades as chairman, Edwin Land was coerced into resigning. The board pushed him out, not with a celebration, not with gratitude for what he had built. They simply told him he needed to go. The man who had invented instant photography, who had built Polaroid from a Cambridge garage into one of the most admired corporations in America, removed by the very people he had hired and mentored. Land left Polaroid. He went back to his research. He spent the rest of his life studying light and color vision at the Roland Institute of Science, the nonprofit he had founded years earlier. He never returned to the company he created. Edwin Land died on March 1, 1991, at age 81. He ordered his personal notes and correspondence destroyed after he retired. The family had a laboratory associate shred his papers. There were so many that the task took 3 years to complete. The man who built Polaroid left no roadmap for what came next. And the people who replaced him, the pragmatists who had warned about Polavision, were about to prove that reading the market correctly on one product doesn't mean you can see the future. Because the second warning sign was coming. And this one, they would miss even worse. Chapter 7. The digital camera they already had. Here's the part of the story that makes people angry. By 1989, Polaroid was spending 42% of its entire research and development budget on digital imaging. 42%. The company was one of the earliest and most aggressive investors in digital photography technology in the world. In the mid-1960s, Polaroid had taken out some of the first patents on electronic shutters. In 1981, they set up a dedicated electronic imaging group inside the company. In 1996, Polaroid developed a fully functional digital camera, the PDC 2000. It worked. It was real. The technology existed inside Polaroid's own laboratories. They shelved it. The resolution wasn't good enough. The image quality didn't meet the standard Edwin Land had set for the company decades earlier. Polaroid's leadership didn't want the Polaroid name attached to a product that produced anything less than perfect photographs. So they sat on it. They waited for the technology to improve. They told themselves that when digital cameras were good enough, they would release one and everything would be fine. But there was a deeper problem than perfectionism. There was a cultural one. Former Polaroid executive Hugh McKenzie recalled it plainly. The culture of the leadership was chemistry and media first. It had little respect for hardware. They had a considerable amount of fear from the chemical and film people about what would their job be if we got into electronics. The scientists and chemists who had spent their careers perfecting instant film, the people who understood Polaroid's identity at the molecular level, saw digital photography as an existential threat, not just to the company, to themselves. If Polaroid went digital, their expertise became irrelevant. Their decades of work meant nothing. That fear lived inside the building every single day. By the late 1990s, Polaroid was actually one of the top sellers of digital cameras in the United States. They had the product, they had the brand, they had the distribution. They didn't have a business model. This is the trap that destroyed Polaroid. And it's the one almost no one saw coming until it was too late. Polaroid's entire financial structure was built on one thing: consumables. Film. Every time someone bought a Polaroid camera, the real money came from the film they put in it. The cameras were almost sold at cost. The film, with margins as high as 70%, was where the profit lived. This is the same razor and blade model that built Gillette, that built Xerox, that built dozens of the most profitable companies in American history. But digital photography eliminated the blade entirely. A digital camera takes thousands of photographs. There is no film to buy, no consumable to replenish, no recurring revenue stream. Polaroid's executives understood this intellectually. They knew the math. Former CEO Gary DiCamillo admitted it years later in an interview at Yale. "We knew we needed to change the fan belt, but we couldn't stop the engine. And the reason we couldn't stop the engine was that instant film was the core of the financial model of this company. So they kept making film. They kept hoping customers would always want a physical print. They kept believing that the tangible, holdable, touchable nature of a photograph would protect them forever." McAllister Booth wrote in a 1985 letter to stockholders, "As electronic imaging becomes more prevalent, there remains a basic human need for a permanent visual record." DiCamillo, speaking in 2008, years after the bankruptcy, admitted the truth. It's amazing, but kids today don't want hard copy anymore. This was the major mistake we all made. That was a major hypothesis that I believed in my marrow that was wrong. They were wrong. And by the time they admitted it, everything was gone. The numbers were already telling the story. But nobody at the top of Polaroid wanted to read them. Chapter 8. The numbers don't lie. Look at what happened to Polaroid in the final years. Not the slow decline, the free fall. Peak revenue, $3 billion in 1991. By 1998, revenue had dropped to $1.89 billion, a 37% collapse in 7 years. Peak employment, 21,000 workers in 1978. By 2001, the number was 6,700 worldwide and shrinking by the day. Stock price, $59.50 on August 1st, 1997. By October 2001, it was trading at 26 cents, a 99.5% loss. Every single dollar an employee had invested became less than half a cent. To understand how far Polaroid had fallen, you have to understand how high it once stood. In 1977, Polaroid released the One Step, a plastic fixed-focus instant camera that used the same SX70 film, but cost only $39.95, less than a quarter of the price of the SX70. It was simple. It was cheap. It was foolproof. You didn't need to know anything about photography. You just pushed the button. The One Step became the best-selling camera in America during the 1977 Christmas season. Not just the best-selling instant camera, the best-selling camera, period. Polaroid had cracked the mass market wide open. In the 2 years following the One Step launch, total instant camera sales in the United States climbed from 7.4 million units in 1976 to 10.3 million in 1977 to 14.3 million in 1978. People were shooting 1 billion Polaroid photographs a year. That was the height. That was the mountaintop. The layoffs came in waves after that. 1,570 jobs cut in 1995. Another 1,500 in 1997. 600 to 700 more in 1998. Each round accompanied by restructuring charges that carved hundreds of millions out of the balance sheet. CEO Gary DiCamillo, who took over in 1995, tried to reinvent the company. He launched 30 to 40 new products every year. Disposable flashlights, alkaline batteries, polarized sunglasses, anything with the Polaroid name on it. Anything that might generate revenue. Most of it failed. The Captiva camera had a strong debut, but sales dropped off fast. The company released a Barbie instant camera in 1998. a Spice Girls camera the same year. Products designed to catch trends, not build a future. Meanwhile, digital cameras were getting cheaper, faster, and better every single month. Canon, Nikon, Sony, Fuji, they were all pouring billions into digital technology. The resolution improved. The storage got cheaper, the cameras got smaller, and the price kept falling. By 2000, a decent digital camera cost less than $300. By 2001, you could buy one for under $100. And every single one of those cameras took an unlimited number of photographs with zero ongoing cost. Polaroid's film business was dying. Not shrinking, dying. The customers who had used instant film for ID cards, real estate listings, insurance documentation, they switched to digital overnight. Corporate customers didn't need to wait for a photograph to develop. They needed it on a screen in seconds. The company was hemorrhaging cash. Debt mounted to $935 million. Losses piled up quarter after quarter. And there was no product in the pipeline, nothing, that could stop it. On October 11, 2001, Polaroid Corporation filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. But the bankruptcy wasn't just a business story, it was a human one. And the people who paid the real price for every bad decision made at the top, they were still working on the factory floor. Chapter 9, The Silent Factory. The Polaroid facilities in Massachusetts had been the heart of the company for decades. Cambridge, Waltham, Norwood, New Bedford. These weren't just factories, they were institutions, landmarks, places where generations of workers had spent their careers building something they believed in. In its heyday, Polaroid employed roughly 15,000 people in Massachusetts alone. The company was known for generous benefits, health insurance, pension plans, stock ownership. Polaroid threw a $100,000 party in 1977 to celebrate the 30th anniversary of instant photography. One ex-employee recalled that during Polaroid's golden years in the 1960s, the bonus checks were so generous and so regular that Main Street Ford, the car dealership across the street from Polaroid's Waltham facility, used to run special promotions timed to coincide with Polaroid's bonus days. Workers would walk out of the factory and into the showroom the same afternoon. Land himself had built a culture where scientists and workers felt like they were part of something historic, not just a job, a mission. He hired women as research scientists at a time when almost no company did. He led Polaroid to the forefront of the affirmative action movement after Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. The company wasn't perfect, but it tried, and the people who worked there felt it. The Employee Stock Ownership Plan, the ESOP, was supposed to protect that culture. In the 1980s, when a hostile takeover threat loomed, Polaroid encouraged employees to buy company stock as a defense mechanism. Workers were essentially told, invest in us, believe in us, own a piece of the dream. They did. For years they invested. Quarter after quarter, paycheck after paycheck, they put money into Polaroid stock. Some of them gave up cash wages to do it. They trusted the company. They believed in what they were building. When the stock hit $59.50 in August 1997, a worker named O'Neill, 13 years at the company, saw his ESOP shares worth over $60,000. A decent nest egg. Not a fortune, but enough to build something on. Enough to retire with some dignity. By October 2001, those shares were worth less than $600. It's 13 years of my savings that they stole from me, O'Neill told reporters after the bankruptcy. A 40-year employee named Larry Cummings retired on October 12, 2001, the same week Polaroid filed. He still held 6,000 shares at 29 cents each. If those were still worth something, I'd be retiring and enjoying myself, he said. Now I'm getting nervous about my home equity loan and my mortgage. A 27-year employee named Ed Brewer had managed to sell a quarter of his shares before the collapse and netted $18,000. He sold the rest when the stock was still above $1 I would rather have gotten the pay, he said. I didn't want the stock in the first place. 6,000 Polaroid retirees lost the lifetime health benefits they had been promised. The company eliminated retiree insurance in the weeks before filing. Meanwhile, in the months leading up to bankruptcy, Polaroid's senior executives had collectively received $6.3 million in bonuses. After the sale, the top 45 executives received additional bonuses just for staying at their jobs during the transition. Former CEO DiCamillo alone walked away with $1.4 million. The workers got $47 each. $47. That was the settlement retirees received after going to court to fight for what they had been promised. In 2008, Polaroid closed its last two film manufacturing plants in Massachusetts, Norwood and Waltham. 150 jobs eliminated. The closures left Polaroid with 150 administrative employees in the state, down from a peak of 21,000 just 3 decades earlier. The Waltham facility, a 120-acre site on the historic Route 128 Technology Highway, sat empty for years. Weeds grew through the parking lot. The Polaroid logo faded on the brick. Eventually, the site was sold for $40 million and turned into a shopping center. No museum, no monument, no ceremony, just demolition and retail. In 2009, production of Polaroid instant film ceased entirely. The last film rolled off the line in the Netherlands, not in Massachusetts, not in the country where the company was born. The machines that had produced billions of photographs over 6 decades went silent for the last time. And the name that once meant magic, was about to become something Edwin Land would not have recognized. Chapter 10. What's left? The Polaroid name still exists. You can buy a Polaroid camera at Target today. You can buy Polaroid film. You can snap a photograph and watch it develop in your hand, just like you could in 1948. But the company that makes those cameras and that film is not the Polaroid that Edwin Land built. Not even close. After the 2001 bankruptcy, the Polaroid name and brand were sold to Bank One's One Equity Partners for $255 million. A new company took the name and kept operating. But it was a shell. The scientists were gone. The engineers were gone. The culture Land had spent decades building was gone. The landmark headquarters building on Memorial Drive in Cambridge, a beautiful, streamlined, modern structure that had been added to the National Register of Historic Places, was sold off for $10 million before the bankruptcy was even finalized. Just another piece of real estate. In 2005, a company called Petters Group Worldwide bought Polaroid for $426 million. Petters was run by Tom Petters, a smooth-talking Minnesota businessman who promised to revitalize the brand. 3 years later, Petters was indicted for running one of the largest Ponzi schemes in American history. Polaroid filed for bankruptcy a second time in 2008. The brand changed hands again and again. It passed through investment groups and holding companies like a trading card. Each new owner slapped the Polaroid name on LCD televisions, DVD players, digital cameras, products that had nothing to do with instant photography and nothing to do with what Edwin Land had built. The name that once meant magic now appeared next to cheap electronics at discount retailers. The brand had become exactly what Land would have despised. Today, the Polaroid brand is owned by a Polish billionaire named Wiaczesław Smołkowski through a company called Polaroid BV based in Amsterdam. The instant film is manufactured in Enschede, Netherlands. The cameras are assembled overseas. It is a European product wearing an American name. And yet, something unexpected has happened. In 2008, when Polaroid announced it would stop making instant film forever, a small group of people in the Netherlands refused to accept it. They called themselves the Impossible Project, named deliberately because everyone told them what they were trying to do was impossible. The original Polaroid film formula was gone. The manufacturing knowledge had disappeared with the company. The chemistry was extraordinarily complex. Dozens of layers of film, precisely calibrated chemical reactions, timing measured in fractions of seconds. They bought equipment from one of Polaroid's old film factories in Enschede. They spent years trying to recreate instant film from scratch. They failed hundreds of times. The colors came out wrong. The development times were too long. The film was too sensitive to light and temperature. People laughed at them. People said it couldn't be done. They did it. Imperfectly. The colors aren't as vivid as the originals. The development takes longer. The film is more sensitive to outside forces. But it works. It produces photographs that develop in your hands, right there in daylight, just the way Edwin Land intended in 1948. In 2017, the Impossible Project acquired the rights to the Polaroid name and rebranded as Polaroid Originals. Now simply Polaroid. The film is still made in Enschede. The cameras are still manufactured overseas, but the name is back where it belongs, on instant photography. Today, a new generation of young people who never owned a Polaroid growing up, who grew up taking photographs on smartphones, are buying instant cameras. They're shooting film. They're watching photographs develop in their hands and feeling something they can't quite explain. It isn't nostalgia. Most of them have no memories of the original Polaroid. It's something else. Something about holding a physical photograph, about the slowness of it, about the fact that there are only 8 shots in a pack and every one of them matters. Here is what Polaroid's story actually is. It is not the story of a company that failed because it didn't understand technology. Polaroid understood technology better than almost anyone in America. It spent 42% of its R&D budget on digital. It built a working digital camera 6 years before the market exploded. It held patents on electronic shutters going back to the 1960s. Polaroid failed because it understood technology and believed that was enough. It believed that being the smartest company in the room would protect it. It believed that the product it had already built, the thing that made it $3 billion a year, would keep the world from changing. Edwin Land built an empire on the idea that you could see what no one else could see. A 3-year-old's question, a photograph that develops in your hand, a future that didn't exist yet. The people who ran Polaroid after him believed the exact opposite. They believed the future had already arrived, that the empire was finished, that all they had to do was keep the machines running and collect the checks. They were wrong. And 21,000 jobs, $3 billion in revenue, and an entire generation of photographs paid the price. Jennifer Land asked her father why she couldn't see the picture right now. Edwin Land spent the rest of his life answering that question. The factories are silent now. The machines are gone. But somewhere in the Netherlands, in a small factory that didn't exist when Edwin Land was alive, someone is still making the film. The answer still exists. It just doesn't live in Cambridge anymore. Before you go, I need to ask you something. Do you have a Polaroid camera at home? Maybe one sitting in a drawer somewhere. Maybe one your parents bought in the 70s or 80s. Maybe one you found at a garage sale and never used. If you do, I want to know. Drop it in the comments. Tell me what model it is. If you're too young to remember Polaroid cameras yourself, ask your dad. Ask your mom. Ask your grandfather. I guarantee you, someone in your family had one. These cameras were in every single household in America. Someone took a photograph with one at your birthday, at a school play, at a family vacation. Ask them, and then come back here and tell me what they said. If this story hit, then go watch my other video on the Gilbert Erector set. Another American company, another empire that dominated everything. Another collapse nobody saw coming. Link is right there on your screen. Hit subscribe. More of these stories are coming. Don't miss them.